Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us wherever you're joining us. If you're on watching us on television here in Santa Barbara, California, we welcome you. And of course, so many of you are joining us from all over the place at the podcast, at the YouTube channel, and social media channel platforms. And so we hope you'll follow us. We have all the long form interviews. You can also go to goodlifetelevision.org. All the long form interviews are there, and we break them up into what we call power clips, which is kind of gives you a taste of some of these just fantastic guests that we've had over the last few years. We're so grateful for you. We're talking about the good stuff. We're talking to some great people, and it's been such a great journey here. And I'm so excited about my guest today. Mark Christopher Lawrence is with me. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So Mark is an actor, comedian, speaker. He's won a lot of different awards for his acting work. We're going to get into kind of his journey on this path he's been on. He's best known for his series regular role as Big Mike on the NBC TV series Chuck, and multiple other things. He's got quite a resume in this work. He's worked with a lot of amazing people, and he is an amazing person himself, and an accomplished actor, comedian, and speaker. So I wanted to start with your growing up. You grew up in Compton, California, raised by a single mom, and tell us a little bit about kind of your early life.
Well, we moved to Compton when we moved into the house that my mom actually lives in today. We were the second Black family on our street. And so that was 1969. And we saw the transition of, let me preface that by saying my mom moved there because Compton was rural at the time.
Yeah.
She's from Louisiana, Folsom, Louisiana. And so she moved there because it was rural, and there was a high school 2 blocks away. And when we moved into this house, they rezoned that summer. So my brother, who was going into high school, couldn't go to that high school. So he had to be bused over to Dominguez High School. Then, by 74, it was predominantly African American. And all the strawberry fields and orange groves, lemon groves were all gone. I think there's still some stables there, but very few. And so that began my journey, in Compton. And I always say that God does what he does, because he has a plan for you that's not necessarily your plan.
Right.
And
yeah.
Because I distinctly remember trying to go to Southgate High School because they had a better football team. And my mom didn't want to jump through the hoops to try to get somebody to let us use their address so I could go there. And I ended up going to Dominguez as well, and ran into Mrs. Schilling, who was my 10th grade English teacher, and eventually ended up in her 5th period speech class. And that sort of changed the trajectory of what I thought my life was going to be. In my head, I was going to go on to play football or whatever to get out of the hood. And Mrs. Schilling introduced me to speech and debate and put me in my first play. And she introduced me to a gentleman, Perry Brentz, who put me on stage as a comedian for the first time, when I really didn't even have an act. And he helped me sort of develop in that way. And long story short, ended up at USC on a debate scholarship. And one of my debate coaches was friends with my very first agent. He brought her to see me in a play, and she signed me. And that, that's how I got into this crazy business that we call entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that 10th grade teacher in terms of the impact. I mean, so she kind of got a hold of you, and then you end up like winning I can't remember the details, but some kind of national award in speech, right?
Yeah. So the first thing I won was she put me in a play, and I won the Compton Literary Olympiad as best actor. in a play. And then I won several awards, in on the high school level for speech, oral interpretation of literature. And in college, I won the national championship. Took 4 events to the national tournament and won them all. And that's where I met the coaches from USC, and they signed me to go to USC, which was fantastic.
Wow. So did this explain it to me kind of, were you, I think sometimes when people who are gifted in a certain area find it, like, you know, a basketball player who, is uniquely gifted at, whatever, a composer. I mean, whatever walk of life you're in, there's
Mm-hmm.
something about I think when you find your sweet spot, as it were. I
Right.
mean, so what was that like as a young man? I mean, as a high schooler and as a college student, to kind of come into this thing that was like, wow, I can do this really well.
I never thought of it in terms of that. It was just fun to do. And, I actually, in my head, I was going to go to law school. And my junior year at USC, I went to take a class, a voice class for speaking and centering. And he says, well, you can't pass the class unless you do 2 songs and 2 monologues. So I do my 2 songs and 2 monologues, and then he talked me into auditioning for the Bachelor of Fine Arts acting program. I was already a junior at that point, and I got in. It's a 4-year program. They put me in as a sophomore, and I started working professionally the same year in theater and TV. My first TV job was that same year.
And was that Hill Street Blues?
Hill Street Blues.
The
Yeah.
great Hill Street Blues. I
Which
remember.
changed the way we watch television. It's like all the cop shows are patterned after Hill Street Blues.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. And so all of a sudden you're in it. I mean, and after that, I mean, early experience, did you know for sure this is what I want to do?
No, because it was a struggle. I mean, through the college years, I wasn't as concerned about making a living. So, but everything just kept falling into place. I'd get a play, I'd get a TV show, I'd get a movie. Like every month, it seemed like something would come up. And then when I graduated, I went to San Francisco and did a show with the San Francisco Mime Troupe. And they do Commedia dell'arte, which is this very highbrow comedy acting. And I guess Marcel Marceau was famous for it. And when I was there, I spent the whole summer doing this show in the parks. I remember being in rehearsal going, when are we moving into the theater? And they said, no, we're doing it at parks. I was thinking, what have I gotten myself into? And opening day, Dolores Park, 2,800 people.
Oh, wow.
The closing weekend was I think it was Memorial Weekend, and we're in Golden Gate Park, and it literally was far as the eye can see with people, like 4,000 people or more each day of that weekend. And I came home after that and didn't have a job, didn't have an acting job come up, so went back up to San Francisco and got into the San Francisco Comedy Festival and made it to semifinals with really not having an act. And I was like, okay, I could probably do this for a living. So I go back home and did a new 5 minutes every week on this cable access show called Dare You to Laugh. And one night, the lady who produced the show says, I'm doing a show in Tacoma. I want you to come and show. I was like, okay. And on the way there, she says, oh, Speedy couldn't make it. I'm going to need you to do 30 minutes. I didn't even know I had 30 minutes. So I took a business card and wrote all my little 5-minute bits on the back of it in an outline form, and then went, okay, and studied it all the way up there. And then when we did the show the next night, I actually did 37 minutes. And so I was like, oh, I have an act.
Wow. Did you like comedy better than acting? Was it
No, I like them both equally well. I actually got this question last night after a show, and I like live better than filmed, because live you affect people in real time, and film you have to wait and see if the editor did you a good turn. You know,
Right.
like I said to the people last night, I said, well, like for example, in Pursuit of Happiness, um, there's a scene where Will Smith comes to get his $14 from me, and my best take was the second take. And I distinctively remember it because he watched the monitor after every take, and he came back and was like, "That was fantastic," and I knew that it felt very good when we did the scene. And his best take was about the sixth take. And when I saw it on screen, I was like, "Oh, they used his take," and I get it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's different. Have you, I mean, this is probably a tough one, but I mean, has there been a favorite project or show for you as you look back?
Yeah, there's a couple. Terminator 2 was great because it changed the way we watched films, just in terms of the special effects. Um, I did a little film, and I'm remiss to talk about it because it's not faith based at all. It's like, in fact, it's opposite of that. It's a rap Spinal Tap, and we were this rap group, and it's a mockumentary, and that's the only thing that I've ever done that I did the project and watched it and just laughed. And even I watched it recently, and I was like, I wasn't a good actor then, but I was funny. I remember my mother went to the screening, cast and crew screening of the premiere, and I was in Canada doing stand up. And I get this, I still had a pager back then, and I get this page from her, and I listen to the message, and it said, "So I saw your little movie. I had to go home and repent." And but that is was kind of fun, and I think it was because I was working with friends, Rusty Cundiff, who wrote a lot of the Dave Chappelle show and a bunch of other stuff. He and I are good friends. I met him through Perry, through Mrs. Schilling, so that's a connection. And he directs a lot of stuff, and so usually when he's working, I'm working. And but the freedom that he gave me on set was fantastic. It's like he'd come in with sort of a skeleton of what we needed to say to move the story. He says, "Look, we have to say these words to get the story out." He says, "But do what you do." And to have a director trust you enough to just let you say whatever, as long as you move the story, it was really refreshing, as opposed to somebody that's heavy handed. Even though I don't get a lot of notes from directors now, it's always nice to know that they trust what you do.
Mm,
And then of course the TV show Chuck, that
yeah.
was probably one of my favorites. And George, I worked with George Wendt on a show called um, the George Wendt Show, and that experience, that was my first series, and he was such a great guy to work with, and that cast was so much fun to work with, that that'll always be in my heart, because it was so much fun and such a blessing to work with those people.
Yeah. What a legend he is. And I mean, I just was looking kind of down the list. I mean, Sinbad and Jerry Seinfeld and Rodney Dangerfield and Jeff Foxworthy. I mean, you've really been with some real legends. I mean, that's when you look back on all this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what do what comes to mind as you think about kind of the whole picture here?
Well, I think about like the people that had I not been in the business, that I've worked with, that I probably never would have met. Schwarzenegger, but there's been so many people. Burt Reynolds, I worked with Burt Reynolds, and
Uh,
and and at that time, Burt had been a major movie star for over 20 years. And Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, and just all these people that chances are I wouldn't have met had I not been in the business.
yeah,
You know, and I think about that, and I think about how when I'm in the industry and I'm watching a lot of stars, the way they interact with people, and it sort of helps me stay grounded, because some of them are not very nice to people. And
hmm,
my thing is, the fans, especially, although I treat everybody with decency and respect, um, the fans make you who you are in this industry. It's like you're not a star without them.
Right.
And so I always tend to, if somebody wants an autograph or a picture, I'll stop and take a picture, write an autograph. Just because it's I think, as a Christian, it's like, we think that, our mandate is love.
Yeah.
And you don't know what somebody is going through.
Yeah.
And in this industry, when I look back at my career, which I feel still like I'm still grinding at, I look back at it though, and I say to myself that no matter what, if we just love people,
Yeah.
this business will start chasing me, and I'll stop chasing it.
How true is that? Wow. Talk a little bit about your faith journey.
Well, I grew up in church. In my mother's house, there was no not going to church. No matter what you did Saturday night, Sunday morning, Shirley Caesar was on the. We had the big coffin stereo system, and she put the Shirley Caesar record on at like 6 a.m, as loud as she could get it. And everybody was getting up, going to church. And then when I got to college, I stopped going. I said to myself, I'm grown. I don't have to go if I don't want to go. And I didn't. I said, I can talk to God in my apartment. I don't have to, go to church to do that. And then I felt like something was missing. I felt like, this is years later, probably in my 30s, that there was a piece missing. And then went back to church and got around like-minded people. And that helps. I mean, it's like, even though you're striving to be a good person, you're striving to love people, you're striving to follow God's word. It's hard if you don't have people that you can call who are like-minded. Something that's bothering you, or to share your success, your failures, your ups, your downs. And in this business, there's a lot of ups and downs. It's high highs and low lows. And, so I try to keep myself surrounded with people that I know will, one, be real with me, and two, hit their knees for me and pray.
Yeah. Wow. So important. Community. We're just not made to do this alone. I'm reminded of that all the time.
Yeah.
And that kind of that independent streak. I don't need anybody, or that kind of attitude that, I think all of us have at different times in our life. It just doesn't really work long term. Maybe it's an okay short term, but at least it didn't for me. But yeah. So what does your mom think about all this?
Oh, she's unfazed by it. She just wants me to be happy.
Yeah.
She's 83 now, and so now there's sort of the transition of she's forgetting some things here and there, and that's starting to bother her. I was saying to a friend the other day that I don't know how to comfort her when she gets down because she can't remember something. And I remember Christmas Day, she was feeling that way because she couldn't remember a recipe or something. And I said, Mom, it's okay. I said, it's all right. We all forget stuff, but I didn't know how to make her feel better. And it broke my heart.
Yeah. And she's in the same house, you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'd love to meet her someday. Well, last night I was talking with a colleague of mine, and he said, "You're having Big Mike on?" And I said, "Yes, I am." Can you talk to somebody who's never seen Chuck on NBC and kind of give what you like about it?
The thing I liked most about it were the people. We had a huge cast. Our cast was 10 people, series regulars, and everybody was fun to work with. Everybody was fun to be around. The crew was fun to be around. And I think over the whole 5 seasons, there were only 2 people that felt like trouble. And after the second season, they both were gone.
Mm.
And Zach, generous to a fault, also a Christian. And Chuck blew him up. After Chuck, it's like his career really took off. And just the people on the show and involved with the show were really, really good together. I've been on shows like I did a guest star on Designing Women at the height of those women not liking each other, and it was tense. It was one of those jobs where it was like, man, I just want to get my money and get out of here.
Wow. Yeah, that's probably the case. People don't think about that. I had Linda Pearl on a few months ago, who's unbelievable career.
Yeah.
Over the decades, and she was talking about the same thing. She was talking about the power, like the difference it makes when you really have a culture that gels. I mean, she was actually specifically talking about The Office and how great it was, that little culture that was going on that viewers never think about that. We just think everybody gets along and there's no problem,
Right.
But it must, like probably a little bit maybe akin to a sports team that has great chemistry. It's probably a bigger deal than we think.
Well, I think part of it too is that when you're acting with people and they kind of know how you do your thing. Like me, I tend to be word perfect, and if there's something I want to ad lib, it's usually at the end of a line. And people that you work with every day, they know that you will do something at the end of a line, and they gave you that space. And there was another guy, Vic, who always did something a little funny in the middle of the line, and so we just the give and take is fantastic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's interesting. What a road. What a road. It's fun to learn about you. Last thing I want to ask you is, are you really, well, number one, have you ever, two questions. Have you ever done voiceover stuff?
Yes. I did 8 years on Adventures in Odyssey.
Okay.
Focus on the family. John Bevere has a book called Driven by Eternity.
Okay.
And so there's a audio book called Affabel, and so I'm one of the characters in Affabel. And really,
okay.
it's a great series of discs. There's 4 discs in the set, and it's really fantastic. I got a message on my website from a lady who she said to me that she had walked away from church and God because she felt like God had let her down. And somebody gave her Affabel, the CDs, and she was playing them in her car. And my character's name is Selfish, and he gets to the great throne, and he thinks he's going to hell, but because somebody who he thought was better than him was sent to hell. And he gets there and he's broken and he feels like he's going to hell, but he doesn't go. And I remember when we taped it. Usually, when you're doing voiceover, you do a take of something, and then there's a click, and the director will give you a note, and then you do it again or whatever, and then we finish. We move on to the next thing. And when we did that particular section, I'm waiting for the click, and I don't hear it. And a couple minutes go by, and I kind of look through the window to see if I can see anybody. And finally, I hear the click, and the director says, "Oh, hold on a minute, Mark." And he's clearly verklempt, And then he clicks back on. He says, "That was great." He says, "By the way, everybody is in here listening to this." He says, and everybody is breaking down. And then he said, "Let's just do one for safety." And so we do another one. And so the lady said that when she got to that point in the series, she says she had to pull over to the side of the road. She was driving, and she says, and I repented right then
Mm,
and started going back to church. She said it affected me so deeply. And that's the thing about this job.
yeah.
You never know how you are going to affect people. And let me say this: I've tried to get out of this business many times, because there's many times where there's a couple of a couple of months or 3 months or so that I wasn't working when I got to find something else to do, because this is just driving me crazy. And God has sometimes dramatically closed the door to what I was trying to do and put me into a job. Like when I booked Terminator 2, I hadn't worked in about 3 months. And I read in the LA Weekly, learn to deal cards. We have placement in Monaco, Vegas, Tahoe. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and check this out, because you could monitor the class for free, and if you liked it, it was $499. So I'm sitting there in the class, and before the first break, suits come in and shut the class down. Apparently, they're laundering money through it, and
Oh my
then
gosh.
and then about a week later, I get a call from the costume designer from Terminator 2 asking me for my sizes. And I was like, what is this for? And she goes, Terminator 2. And the last audition I had was 3 months before that call. And it was Terminator 2. It was for Terminator 2. And I thought I didn't get it. And so I called my agent and said, hey, the costume designer just called me from Terminator 2. And they said, yeah, we're on the phone with him right now, making a deal. And that was a dramatic case of God going, no, you're not doing that. You're doing this.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. What a great story about the lady in the car too.
Right.
Are you doing an album of hymns?
I'm working on it right now. I'm trying to find I guess a way to do it without going broke. so, so 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 I've been trying to figure out, maybe I should do a crowd fund or something. Because every time I do stand up at a church, someone asks me for my music and I don't have any. I was like, I don't think I'm really a singer. And then my friend Sean Rolfe, he's a fantastic musician in San Diego. We did a play together, and he was the musical director, and his band was on stage with us. And he said, man, you got to do it. He says, let's produce an album of hymns. He says, and he says, you got it. So I've been focusing on it, and I haven't really pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
But I need to get it done, because it never fails. Every time I do a church, somebody asks me for music.
Oh, I can see why. I'd buy it. Yeah, and your voice is a gift from God. If I ever, need my story told or something, I need you to be the voiceover.
Well, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I'd be more than happy
to. Hey, this has been great. Mark Christopher Lawrence has been my guest. What a wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. Combination of talent and then just this kind heart. So, Mark, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.